Imagine discovering a text so explosive, so controversial, that it could shatter everything you thought you knew about Christianity. In 1945, hidden in the sands of Egypt, an ancient manuscript emerged that the church never wanted you to see, the Gospel of Thomas. My friend, what I'm about to share with you isn't just another history lesson. This is about a truth so powerful that it's been systematically suppressed for over 1,600 years. A truth that could fundamentally change how you see yourself, your spirituality, and your place in the universe. The Gospel of Thomas isn't like any Bible text you've read. There's no crucifixion, no miracles, no resurrection story. Instead, it contains something far more revolutionary, Jesus' secret teachings about your true divine nature. Yes, you heard that right, your divine nature. Think about this for a moment. What if everything you've been told about salvation and divine connection was deliberately incomplete? In this ancient text, Jesus doesn't talk about sin or redemption. Instead, he says something shocking. The kingdom of God is inside you. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Scientific dating proves this gospel was written around the same time as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This isn't some later fabrication. These could be Jesus' original unfiltered words, words that the institutional church desperately wanted to keep hidden. Why? Because these teachings threatened their very foundation. Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas, isn't presenting himself as an unreachable divine figure. He's revealing a profound truth that divinity exists within every single one of us. If you bring forth what is within you, he says, what you bring forth will save you. The implications are staggering. This isn't just about religion, it's about power. For centuries, religious institutions have positioned themselves as the gatekeepers to God, the exclusive intermediaries between humanity and the divine. But what if Jesus' original message was that you never needed an intermediary at all? You're probably wondering why you've never heard this before. Well, in the 4th century, when the church was consolidating its power, they made a calculated decision. They branded the Gospel of Thomas as heretical, ordered all copies destroyed, and buried this revolutionary message under centuries of dogma and control. But here's the most crucial part. This isn't just ancient history. This is about you right now. What if the divine connection you've been seeking isn't found in a building, a ritual, or an institution? What if the power you've been praying for has been within you all along? The Gospel of Thomas suggests something revolutionary, that you're not just a sinner in need of salvation, you're a divine being who's forgotten your true nature. And perhaps that's exactly why certain powers have worked so hard to keep these teachings hidden. Think about it. Why would an institution spend centuries suppressing a text that simply encourages people to find God within themselves? What were they so afraid of? And more importantly, what might happen if people started realizing their own divine potential? The truth is, this discovery isn't just challenging religious doctrine, it's challenging everything we thought we knew about human potential. And as we delve deeper into these hidden teachings, you'll discover why this ancient message could be more relevant today than ever before. Because, my friend, this isn't just about what happened 2,000 years ago. This is about who you really are, and why the most powerful institutions in history didn't want you to know it. But the Gospel of Thomas is just the beginning. What I'm about to reveal next goes even deeper into the heart of hidden Christianity. Ever heard of the Gnostics? They were early Christians who possessed knowledge so dangerous the church spent centuries trying to wipe them from history. These weren't just some fringe believers. The Gnostics were sophisticated spiritual seekers who understood Jesus' message in a radically different way. They didn't see him as a distant savior, but as a guide, showing us how to awaken our own divine consciousness. And here's the kicker. They had their own sacred texts, their own rituals, and most importantly, their own direct experience of the divine. In texts like the Gospel of Philip and the Secret Book of John, we find something extraordinary. These writings describe Jesus teaching his followers not about sin and punishment, but about spiritual awakening. He speaks of a divine spark within each person, waiting to be ignited. Sound familiar? It's exactly what we found in the Gospel of Thomas. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Gnostics believed something that would shake the foundations of traditional Christianity. They claimed the God of the Old Testament wasn't the true divine source. They called him the demiurge, a lesser deity who created our material world as a kind of prison. Above him was the true God, a being of pure light and consciousness. Think about that for a moment. What if everything you thought you knew about God, creation, and your place in the universe was based on an incomplete understanding? What if the real message of Jesus was about breaking free from this material prison and reconnecting with our true divine nature? The Gnostics weren't just philosophers, they were spiritual revolutionaries. They developed sophisticated meditation practices, mystical rituals, and techniques for achieving direct divine experience. No priests, no middlemen, no institutional authority required. Just pure, unfiltered connection with the divine. Of course, this kind of teaching was absolutely terrifying to the emerging church hierarchy. How could they maintain control if people could access the divine directly? How could they assert their authority if everyone had the potential for divine wisdom within themselves? The response was brutal. The Gnostic texts were burned, their communities were persecuted, and their teachings were branded as heretical. The Church Fathers launched a systematic campaign to erase this alternative Christianity from history. But they couldn't destroy everything. Hidden in caves, buried in the desert, these ancient teachings survived. And now, in our time, they're re-emerging to challenge everything we thought we knew about Christianity. The Gnostics weren't just some ancient sect. They were keepers of a profound spiritual truth that threatens religious power structures even today. Consider this. Why would an institution spend so much effort destroying these teachings if they weren't powerful? What were they so afraid of? And most importantly, what might happen if people today started exploring these ancient practices of direct divine connection? The Gnostic teachings aren't just historical curiosities. They're a mirror showing us what Christianity could have been, and perhaps what it still could become. A path not of blind faith and obedience, but of personal transformation and spiritual awakening. And, as we'll explore next, these weren't the only teachings that the early church tried to suppress. There's an even deeper layer to this story, one that connects directly to the words of Jesus himself in the canonical Gospels. What the church really feared wasn't just alternative texts or teachings. It was the explosive power of direct mystical experience. In the earliest days of Christianity, before the bishops and dogmas, before the grand cathedrals and golden crosses, there was something far more profound. Communities of spiritual seekers having direct encounters with the divine. These weren't your typical Sunday prayer meetings. The early Christian mystics were experiencing altered states of consciousness, vivid visions, and profound spiritual transformations. They called it theosis, the process of becoming one with God. Not through ritual or doctrine, but through direct, personal experience. Let me share something that was deliberately erased from Christian history. The Desert Fathers and Mothers, early Christian mystics who retreated to the Egyptian desert, weren't just praying. They were practicing sophisticated meditation techniques, engaging in breathing exercises, and experiencing what they described as divine light. Sound familiar? It should, because these are the same experiences reported by mystics across all traditions. But here's what's truly fascinating. These weren't isolated incidents. Early Christian texts describe entire communities engaged in what they called spiritual marriage, a direct, experiential union with the divine. The Acts of John, for instance, shows Jesus leading his disciples in ecstatic dance rituals. Yes, you heard that right. Dance rituals that induced mystical states of consciousness. The evidence is hidden in plain sight. Even in the canonical Gospels, Paul describes being caught up to the third heaven, a clear reference to mystical experience. The early church father, Clement of Alexandria, wrote about secret teachings passed down from Jesus himself, teachings about achieving direct divine knowledge. So, what happened? Why did Christianity transform from a religion of direct spiritual experience into one of rigid dogma and controlled ritual? The answer lies in power and control. Mystical experience is inherently democratic. It can't be controlled, regulated, or administered by an institution. Anyone can have a direct encounter with the divine, and that terrified the emerging church hierarchy. By the 4th century, the church began systematically suppressing these mystical traditions. The ecstatic practices were banned, the mystical texts were burned, and the direct experience of God was replaced with regulated sacraments administered only by authorized priests. It was a spiritual coup d'etat of massive proportions. But they couldn't completely erase these practices. They went underground, preserved by secret groups of Christian mystics throughout history. The medieval mystics like Mr. Eckhart and Julian of Norwich carried these flames. Despite persecution, they continued to speak of direct divine experience, of finding God not in churches or rituals, but in the depths of their own consciousness. Think about what this means for you right now. The Christianity you know has been stripped of its most powerful element, the direct, transformative experience of the divine. The very practices that could revolutionize your spiritual life were deliberately hidden, suppressed, and nearly lost to history. This isn't just ancient history. It's about reclaiming something that was stolen from us. These mystical practices weren't just some fringe element of early Christianity. They were its beating heart. And their suppression wasn't just about controlling doctrine, it was about controlling your access to direct divine experience. But here's the most shocking part. These practices didn't die. They were preserved, hidden away in monasteries, passed down through secret lineages. And now, as we uncover more ancient texts and piece together the fragments of early Christian mysticism, we're beginning to understand just how profound this lost tradition really was. The truth about early Christianity isn't just hidden in ancient texts or lost traditions. It's whispering to us through the very words of Jesus in the Bible itself. Remember when Jesus said, "You are gods." It's right there in John 10:34. A quote so explosive that most churches barely mention it. Think about that for a moment. Jesus himself, quoting Psalm 82 verse 6, explicitly calling humans gods. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but directly stating our divine nature. Why has this profound statement been downplayed for centuries? Because it threatens the very foundation of religious control. But it gets even more fascinating. Throughout the canonical Gospels, Jesus repeatedly hints at this deeper truth. "The kingdom of heaven is within you," he says. "You will do greater things than these," he promises his followers. These aren't the words of someone establishing a hierarchy. These are the words of a teacher revealing our true potential. The early Christian communities understood this. Before the church formalized its power, before the creeds and dogmas, they gathered in homes, sharing profound spiritual experiences. They weren't passive believers, they were active participants in divine revelation. They knew something we've forgotten, that Jesus' message wasn't about creating followers, but awakening equals. This understanding wasn't lost, it was deliberately buried. The Church Fathers knew that a faith centered on personal spiritual awakening would undermine their authority. They needed dependence, not enlightenment. They required followers, not realized beings who understood their own divine nature. But here's the most powerful part. This truth can't be suppressed forever. In our time, as ancient texts resurface and lost teachings come to light, we're rediscovering what Christianity was meant to be. Not a system of control, but a path to awakening. Not a religion of fear, but a journey of remembering who we really are. The evidence is overwhelming. From the Gospel of Thomas to the Gnostic texts, from the mystical traditions to Jesus' own words, they all point to the same revolutionary truth. The divine isn't just out there, it's within you. You're not just a sinner needing salvation. You're a divine being who's forgotten your true nature. This isn't just history. This is about your life right now. What if everything you've been taught about your relationship with the divine needs to be reconsidered? What if the power you've been seeking through external authority has always been within you? The suppressed message of early Christianity isn't just about religion. It's about human potential. It's about reclaiming what was taken from us, our direct connection to the divine, our inherent spiritual power, our true nature as beings of light. And now, as these ancient truths resurface, we stand at a crossroads. Will we continue to accept a version of Christianity that keeps us dependent and disempowered? Or will we dare to embrace the original message that we are, in Jesus' own words, gods? The choice is yours. But remember, this knowledge comes with responsibility. Share this video. If you believe others need to hear this truth, subscribe and hit that notification bell to join us in uncovering more hidden wisdom. Leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts on this revolutionary understanding of Christianity. Because this isn't just about changing what we believe, it's about remembering who we truly are. And that, my friends, is the most powerful truth of all.